This is GRTS News, broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world, and we do more. Welcome back. This is GRTS News at 2200 hours, and we do apologize for that sudden stop in transmission. Now, we begin this edition of the news with our top stories. His Excellency President Adam Barrow, accompanied by a high-powered delegation, arrives in Equatorial Guinea for the 16th Extraordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The Minister for Transport, Works and Infrastructure embarks on a familiarization tour of road projects in provincial Gambia, plus a two-day validation forum on climate change curriculum of the American International University West Africa is underway in Kololi. And away from home, millions in Somalia are at risk of acute hunger as children are hardest hit. And Russia launches new assault on eastern Ukraine towns in the Donbass region. Well, these plus many other stories coming ahead in this edition of the news at 2200 hours. I am Fatoumata Cham. Thank you for joining us. Welcome back. This is GRTS News at 2200 hours. His Excellency President Adam Barrow, accompanied by a high-powered delegation, arrived in Equatorial Guinea for the 16th Extraordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The President was accompanied or received at the Malabo International Airport by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Mamadou Tangara, the Gambia's High Commissioner to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Njai, the Gambia's Ambassador to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the African Union, Her Excellency Jainaba Nyang, amongst other officials. Our Presidential Affairs correspondent is Mamadou Jallo, and he has more in this report.
President, His Excellency Adam Barrow, accompanied by a high-powered delegation, which includes the First Lady, Her Excellency Fatoumata Barrow, arrived in Equatorial Guinea for the 16th Extraordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The President was received at the Malabo International Airport by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Mamadou Tangara, the Gambia's Ambassador to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the African Union, Her Excellency Jainaba Nyang, and other officials. The summit will focus on efforts to fight terrorism and unconstitutional changes of government, and efforts aimed at addressing the current humanitarian challenges facing the continent. Mamadou Jallo, GRTS News.
Now, the Minister for Transport, Works and Infrastructures embarked on a familiarization tour of road projects in provincial Gambia. The tour is meant to avail the Minister and delegation the opportunity to get first-hand information on the state of the projects. Aminata Isanyang is traveling with the tour party, and she filed in this report.
The tour of the Transport and Works Minister extends to the North Bank region, where major government projects are being implemented, one of which is the Nyomi-Hakalang Road. After decades of bitter road experiences, immensely triggering a transportation nightmare for the commuters, finally there comes ease for the people of Nyomi.
The Nyomi-Hakalang Loop and the secondary roads, it concerns the main loop. We start from where we are standing right now. That means at Bunyadu to Albreda, and then from Albreda it goes to Bafuluto and Untaya. That's the main loop. The total length is 55.5 kilometers. And then we have two secondary roads. One is Albreda to Fasoma, is 15 kilometers. And the other secondary road is from Bafuluto to Bengali. It's 13.7 kilometers.
Work is progressing here along this long stretch of road, one of government's flagship project undertakings to bring development to the doorstep of every Gambian. The Hakalang Loop and Secondary Roads project is fully funded by the government of the Gambia and is being supervised by the Ministry of Transport and Works.
Put in a lot of engineering work in this because what we want is to ensure that we build a very good, strong road infrastructure network in this area. So we don't just want to come, build and go. We want to make sure that we have an infrastructure that will be able to withstand the climatic and weather conditions in the North Bank region. A lot of swampy areas are on that route, and we have to navigate our way through by building in solid facilities for the road network.
For commercial drivers plying the Hakalang Road, this was the biggest transportation quandary for the people of this area. With the construction of the road, which is in the final phase of completion, becomes the dream they've never imagined will come true. Efforts are being driven by government to construct a new bridge here with an incredible standard and impressive lifespan to ease transportation challenges for commuters for many decades.
Because when we deal with roads, we also have what we call hydraulic design. In hydraulic design, just what Vincent has just explained, it takes into account the volume of water the structure has to carry. Again, we also look at the catchment area, where the area of the surface where the water needs to come from in order to pass through the structure. We also take into account what we call the rainfall intensity. We need this data. Normally, we get it from the water resources. Yes. So these are factors which we input in the calculation to come up with, of course, the structural detail of some of these drainage facilities.
The minister also had a meeting with the chief of Jokado and other community leaders. They took turns to elaborate on the challenges they are faced with and as well commend government for implementing major projects in the region.
We all appreciate it. This has been a long-waiting road.
The minister on his tour party proceeded to the governor's residence in Kerewan, where he was taken on a tour of the magnificent edifice, which contains offices and rooms.
You can see this magnificent building. It's very nice. We thank the contractor, Mr. Kurubali, and his team for doing a very good job. There are just little things that are left so that the building can be handed over to the ministry, and then we will do the inauguration of the building.
North Bank is one of the regions where major projects pioneered by the Barrow administration are under implementation. The minister's tour is expected to contribute significantly in helping to expedite the successful completion of these major projects. Aminat E. Sanyang, GRTS.
Now, a two-day validation forum on climate change curriculum of the American International University West Africa is underway in Kololi. The forum, organized by the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, is expected to usher in a curriculum for the climate change program of the university in West Africa and other tertiary institutions in the country. Alajimbai has more details in this report.
In an effort to boost environment and climate change awareness and mitigation, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources and the American International University West Africa are set to roll out certificate and degree programs on various fields in environment and climate change studies. The initiative is part of the long-term strategies to implement the Paris Agreement. Speaking at the event, the Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, Ibrahima Jawara, discussed the importance of the initiative in environmental protection and climate change mitigation.
Climate change it cannot be done alone by government. It needs everybody to be hands-on. So this is part of the strategy to get people involved in the fight against climate change.
DPS Jawara assured his ministry's commitment to the implementation of the strategy, which he said involves different phases and stakeholders.
When the LTS document is finalized, the capacity building component, which would be spearheaded by Iowa, and of course with other universities, University of the Gambia, Gambia College, MDI, it is not just restricted to Iowa, but just Iowa would be the one in the forefront. Basically, the university would then supply the lecturers and materials, but the cost of that would not be borne by the students. It will be borne by government and government's partners.
The Chancellor, American International University, West Africa, Dr. Denis Sukla, assured of quality professional and academic training for will-be students. He described climate change as a global menace hugely influenced by technology and globalization.
To address climate change, first we have to understand climate change. American International University West Africa was established so that we would also contribute to the people of Gambia, but to the world as well. And I'm very, very proud and honored to announce that we are going to set up a college of climate change, environment, and public health, which is going to educate the students, make them understand about the climate change, how to address those issues.
The curriculum, when validated, will provide the required capacity for the human resource needs of the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Natural Resources, as well as other public and private institutions. Alajimbai, GRTS News.
Now, Future in Our Hands, the Gambia, a non-governmental organization, recently organized a day-long conference on governance and women's participation in politics in Soma Lower River region. The program, funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, brought together women and communities as well as institutions within the Lower River region. And as Usman Balde reports, the convergence is aimed at strengthening women's participation in governance and decision-making processes.
Future in Our Hands continues to make its impact in the country by complementing government efforts in civic education, the promotion of democracy, rule of law, and human rights issues. Speaking shortly after the opening ceremony, Yankuba Mane, fundraising manager Future in Our Hands, underscored the importance to empower women to make their voices heard. He lamented that women are still being marginalized in governance and decision-making processes. He gave details overview on the topics discussed during the training.
One of them is women's participation in the socio-economic transformation and growth in the Gambia. That's very important, critical. We really need to kind of show to the women what they can do, what their contributions are in national development, in the economic transformation of this country. That's number one. Number two, what they will be looking at is democratic governance and respect for human rights. This is important, it's key, so that they understand that in a democratic society, this is key principle that needs to be nurtured in the country. Democratic governance and respect for human rights. Then the other one would really be inclusive social development and gender equality.
The Regional Disaster Coordinator, Modu Sise, commended Future in Our Hands for their resolve in complementing government's effort for enhanced socio-economic development.
Capacity building is a functioning requirement for any development. So having them in our region will go a long way in helping our society to develop. So we really recognize their efforts, and we want to challenge them to continue engaging us, because government alone cannot do it alone. So we need the partnership, we need the collaboration, we need the good working relationship with other stakeholders, so that together we can achieve our national objectives.
The executive director of Freedom from Hunger Campaign, Alpha Khan, also spoke on the importance of women's participation in decision-making process and politics in the country. The convergence also availed participants the opportunity to form Women's Regional Advocacy Group. The group, according to organizers, will be trained by feature in our hands on various issues affecting women to better manage women matters in the region. Usman Balde, GRTS News.
Now, the Gambia Armed Forces duly informs the public that it is currently conducting field training exercises for its personnel at Yundum Barracks and its general area of Yarambamba, Sinchu, Old Yundum, and Banjulunding. The public, especially residents living around the above-mentioned areas and close satellite villages, are urged not to panic and are encouraged to go about their normal businesses. The armed forces solicits the cooperation of the public. The release ends. The Kanifing Municipal Council today handed over waste management vehicles to 19 wards within the municipality. The new initiative, dubbed Mbalit Project, introduced by Mayor Talib Ahmed Bensouda, is designed to enhance waste management collection in the municipality. As Janke Toure reports, the event held at the Kanifing Municipal Council Annex was graced by high-profile dignitaries. This is her report.
A new development for the municipality as the Kanifing Municipal Council unveils 24 new waste collection trucks with 10 skid bins, amongst others. The trucks, worth over $130 million, are meant to enhance the municipality's Mbalit project for daily collection of waste within the 19 wards. The event punctuated with fanfares and musical interlude by the police band. Was raised by dignitaries including the leader of United Democratic Party, lawyer Usainu Dabo, the deputy mayoress of KM, and ward councillors, among others. This initiative, spearheaded by Mayor Talib Bensouda, is a major step towards keeping the densely populated area clean and healthy for its residents.
The community present here and those out there, we are assuring you that Kanifing Municipal Council, under the leadership of the Lord Mayor, will do everything possible to fulfill its core mandate.
As the biggest municipality in the country, the studies have revealed that KM generates 8% of the country's total waste, of which 65.3% is dumped at the Bakote dump site, whilst 26% is burned at home. The issue of waste management is described as one of the biggest challenges facing councils around the country. Thus, the purchase of the trucks is a welcome development. The Mbalit project manager Bakari Singate cited the significance of the project and called for its sustainability. The trucks were purchased with the support of Mohamed Jah and his Q group. Jah commended the efforts of President Barrow throughout the initiative. This gesture, he added, forms part of his efforts to contribute to the development of the municipality as a businessman.
His Excellency President Barrow and his government for giving the leadership needed to have this project succeed to its level. A business entity, and our focus is to make sure that we give the best products and services to the community at the best affordable cost.
For his part, Mayor Bensouda dilated on the challenges confronting his municipality. Key among them is the management of waste.
4 years ago, myself and my fellow councillors took office and inherited a municipal authority plagued with problems. The most severe and critical of these was the total absence of our waste management service. There was 3 second-hand tractors and 2 second-hand trucks to collect all the waste flowing from 500,000 inhabitants and over 35,000 compounds and 12,000 businesses in the municipality. It was a common sight to see heaps of waste piling in street corners and empty plots within our communities.
The initiative is expected to address a waste management issue within the municipality and as well create job opportunities for Gambians.
The project has since created employment of 170 staff, comprising of 76 janitors, 22 drivers, 20 ward secretaries, 11 street bin attendants, 38 ticket sellers, and 2 accountants. Every single ward in KM received a dedicated compactor truck and service commenced. For the first time, households and businesses started receiving routine, scheduled, publicly managed waste collection service while paying as little as $10 for collection.
Other speakers at the event, including representatives of beneficiaries, lauded the efforts of Mayor Bensouda towards a clean environment and assured him of their unflinching support. The trucks are expected to be distributed to the 19 wards within the municipality. Jean Ture, GTS News.
Now, the Rotary Malaria Committee, the Gambia, in partnership with the Gambia Malaria Control Program, Regional Health Directorate, and the Catholic Relief Services, on Thursday continued their Zero Malaria Sensitization campaign at the Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital. The campaign targets pregnant women and children under 5 years old. Majan Baro has more details.
Women and children being the most vulnerable to malaria, an organization dubbed Rotary Malaria Committee, the Gambia, and partners have joined the crusade to fight against malaria. At the Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital, series of dramas were performed by the Jama Aksalam drama group meant to sensitize pregnant women and parents of children under 5 on how to prevent malaria. The key issues highlighted include carelessness, women failing to start nursing on time, environmental sanitation, and the failure to use insecticide-treated bed nets. The chairperson, Rotary District 9101 Subcommittee on Malaria, Dr. Emma Bruce, said the campaign started in 2019 but was suspended due to COVID-19 outbreak.
Pregnant women and children under 5 years old, they're the most vulnerable group in terms of malaria. So that's why we feel it necessary to complement government's efforts, bring the sensitization campaign to the different hospitals in the Greater Banjul area. We were in Kanifing Hospital a couple of weeks ago, and now we're in Bundung Hospital here. And we feel it necessary and timely for this malaria sensitization campaign, since the bed net distribution campaign is going to start very soon.
The program officer, Vector Control National Malaria Control Program under the Ministry of Health, Samuel S. Gomez, said the ministry has been working on eliminating malaria in the country. The current infection rate in the Gambia stands at 0.01%.
Our target is to reach zero malaria, and it should start with everybody. The Ministry of Health with the National Malaria Control are doing all their efforts to make sure that, all the interventions to fight the vector, that is the mosquito that causes the plasmodium, is eradicated within the sub-region.
Officials of the Bundung Maternal and Child Health Hospital, including nursing officer Ami Jonga and public health officer Modi Job, both stressed the need for attitudinal change for both pregnant women and parents, and called for the taking of intermittent preventive treatments, IPTs, whilst encouraging commitment from the caregivers.
One challenge I would talk about first is the intake of the IPT. That is the intermittent preventive treatment we give them when they come for clinic. That treatment is started at 4 months of gestation, that is 16 weeks. That is the time they start taking the IPT. But the challenges we encounter are, number one, these women most of the time will not take the medication. You will give it to them, they will put it in their mouths, but they will not swallow the medication.
It is not easy when it comes to the caregivers because the queue is too much. Some of them tend to stay away and say, okay, let me cook before I come. Let them prioritize their child's health because it comes first. Health comes first. So that's the issues we have mostly with caregivers and the like, not coming sometimes. It's not regularly here, but if they don't come, it becomes a problem. Because if the child comes and the child should have the remaining vaccines, it becomes tedious for the child.
The Rotarians Against Malaria under the team Zero Malaria Starts With Me are looking forward to achieving 0% of malaria in the Gambia. Majan Barrow for GRTS News.
And over now to a dispatch from the Ministry of Trade, Regional Integration and Employment, which informs the general public, particularly importers and local producers of onions, that it has finalized a framework to support the marketing of local onions. Under the framework, imports of onions will be controlled through an onion import license issued by the ministry every year to enable the sales of domestic onions. According to the release, the ministry has already received a number of applications from interested importers for license. This year's license will be issued effective the 1st of June to the 31st of December 2022, and only licensed importers will be allowed to import onions to enable them also buy and sell onions from farmers throughout the country. This measure is designed to help address the current challenges in the marketing of local onions and minimize post-harvest losses. The Ministry of Agriculture, therefore, calls on farmers who have onions for sale to inform their regional agriculture directorates or their respective regional agriculture marketing federations the quantities of onions they possess. The ministry will facilitate the licensed importers to work closely with the regional agriculture marketing federations to buy the local onions. This process will be implemented every year to support local farmers to quickly sell their onions to support their livelihoods and also promote the local production of onions. The ministry looks forward to the support and cooperation of all stakeholders. The release ends. You're watching GRTS News at 2200 hours. I am Fatoumata Cham. We'll take a short break. The news continues in just a moment. To stay. Welcome back, and over now to some sports, because Gambia's Ibrahima Dabo has won the UEFA Conference title with AS Roma. Dabo's Roma side under Jose Mourinho beat Feyenoord 1-0 in the final on Wednesday to win the inaugural edition of the UEFA Europa Conference League. The Scorpions midfielder becomes the first Gambian to win a European title, and many Gambians took to social media to congratulate the young midfielder for the historic achievement. You're watching GRTS News with me, Fatoumata Cham. Another short break. The news continues in just a moment. Do stay. Welcome back. Over now to news beyond our shores. Millions of Somalis are at risk of sliding into famine as the impact of a prolonged drought continues to destroy lives and livelihoods, and growing needs outpace available resources for humanitarian assistance, United Nations agencies have warned.
This is the earth heaped over the tiny bodies of Alima Hassan Abdullah's twin granddaughters. Weakened by hunger, the twins died due to acute malnutrition.
This is the worst drought that I have seen in many years. We are pastoralists and we lost our livestock after 4 years of drought. We tried to survive on our goats and feed on them, but one after another, they all finally died. Because our situation was very difficult, we fled from home and looked for water near towns.
As the world increasingly focuses on Ukraine, aid agencies and the United Nations are desperate to attract attention to a situation they say is turning into a calamity.
This is the 4th consecutive drought that we see since 2011, since the famine. The food prices are going up. The COVID impact is still there. The climate change is there, and also conflict continues to go. So we have all the 4 C's in addition to the Ukraine crisis.
The World Food Programme says there is only enough cash to provide aid for approximately half of the people currently in the camp. So far, 2.8 million people have received aid. Another 3.1 million remain in dire need. Many others are out of reach as they live in areas controlled by Al-Shabaab militants. Arab Moi, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Texas state governor has said the 18-year-old gunman posted online that he was going to shoot up school minutes before the attack. The gunman, identified as an 18-year-old man from the area, was killed by law enforcement, police said. We have more in the CGTN report.
According to law enforcement, made it known that he was going to carry out this horrific shooting at this elementary school. According to the governor, 30 minutes before this incident took place, he went on Facebook and he said that I'm going to shoot my grandmother. Then he put another post up. I have shot my grandmother. Then 15 minutes before the shooting took place, another message, I'm going to shoot an elementary school. Now, Facebook says that the messages that he sent, they were private one-on-one text messages, and that they only became aware of the situation after this tragic incident took place. We're also getting more details about the alleged gunman himself. He's an 18-year-old. Authorities say that he dropped out of high school, that he has no history of mental illness and no criminal history, although they are still digging to see if there is anything when it comes to a criminal history. The rifle that was used in this attack is one that law enforcement say he bought legally just last week, just days after his 18th birthday. Along with that, he also bought 375 rounds of ammunition. Some are wondering why a young 18-year-old kid who buys 2 rifles and 375 rounds of ammunition within a couple of days of each other, why that didn't raise a red flag with the people at this gun shop. There was a vigil that took place earlier tonight. This is a community that is shattered right now because of what has happened. A lot of the people in the crowd just bowing their head and crying, really no other option to do tonight. Suspected gunman, according to law enforcement, made it known.
Now, fighting between Russian and Ukrainian forces have reached the limits of the key eastern Ukraine city of Severodonetsk. The regional governor said on Wednesday, describing the combat as very difficult. France 24 has more in this report.
In the Donbass, where Russia is stepping up its offensive and targeting Ukrainian positions. After Mariupol, the Russian army is now focused on Severodonetsk, a city in the region of Luhansk. It's been under fire day and night. Some neighborhoods are beyond recognition. Food shortages, no electricity. The majority of its 100,000-strong population has fled, but thousands remain in the city. And while some are bent on staying, others are desperately trying to get out.
Now it seems like the front is all around the city. It's practically surrounded. There are tanks. We can see trucks from the army being deployed around the city. So it seems very clear that, to me, it's about to fall.
The Ukrainians say that the Russian army is trying to repeat the experience of Mariupol. Severodonetsk is one of the remaining Ukrainian pockets in the Luhansk region. It's surrounded by towns already under Russian control. Severodonetsk is the easternmost city that's still under Ukrainian control.
It's said that there are around 8,000 Ukrainian soldiers in Severodonetsk, in Mariupol, and Avostal. There were at most 2,000 or 3,000. So the huge problem the Ukrainians are facing is, should they give up on Severodonetsk, pull back and preserve these troops, or should they fight symbolically?
As the conflict enters its 4th month, there are no signs that Russia will let up anytime soon. Russia's defense minister repeated on Tuesday that Moscow would press on with its war until all goals are achieved.
Well, with that report, we come to the end of this edition of the news at 2200. His Excellency President Adama Barrow, accompanied by a high-powered delegation, arrived in Equatorial Guinea for the 16th Extraordinary Summit of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the African Union. The Minister for Transport, Works and Infrastructure has embarked on a familiarization tour of road projects in provincial Gambia, plus a 2-day validation forum on climate change curriculum for the American International University West Africa is underway in Kololi. Away from our shores, millions in Somalia are at risk of acute hunger as children are hardest hit. And Russia has launched a new assault on eastern Ukraine towns in the Donbas region. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of the news at 2200 hours. Many thanks for your company. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Bye-bye.
Programme datila la programme kuto me yalon ko lafta wala datila bi mba fala ko futu bungo kono
hari woto makayo ita ka jero kiawda de ko ngedi nyina
sai di no lo dato
sai alka ben be do ko don ale la finyora don ala fali so ka di man son fana alhamdulillah pudo stabile may labe
min kala me mari man problème so te ni ke e be ni sakela santon e ka fa la kala ma manji folo wala mu yente na may ma buute man fen cala min kala ma bitla ben ni santon
kaylo na be dunya kono men ka kaylo be wula be kaylo be ba ma wala futuwo yo sa nin ko futuwo man ka kamala mun mo futuwo ci futuwo wala mu yente kala hedo sikim mo fula tema
yin ka ba man toro wata ba kele futu bon kon ya mai mama ni ya mala ji sala man toro wata
ko folo wala mu halalo bi men ka futu ta ka
halalo
akan ji haram nin ko be kuma sa halalo don abe katle fulan nyan wala mu no futu nyama le nyo hako kanta mo kan nyo hako da saban nyan wala mu sabalas kasi albado nga funya be mon kolya wala sabaro ni ninka nan nyan wala mu duwa ni sada
futu bon kono albula nyim programme no masala talata tribulo kada te talanta nin fula ka fa talanta ninka yara liman baliya ka saro siyata muna jama'a sani de murnali kan ya wali
nya gibe mol jamalef ko do mo baka sumuna la o buro bayri mburu janan lalu fanan ni man ko kaje jaba bala ni kila lol ka do
ke ba ko do ka kuno de asembota da ko mo be je fakateji ba ko yoro fonin jolle
to nyaale ala e min fodoro bari si aussi yaaje alon ko mo kendol bije itano bije
bi ni ngano num fon kunta finte feri mbe wala digidal
shibaro di alkalo la katandi ko polong nyinna buluba karo ala mara karo nyemin fata ita kontilano
Boto bi ni amu yali ba for the factory